High Demand Homestead. So today we're going to talk about what to plant in your new vegetable garden, how to decide what it is that you're going to plant. The other two segments that we just did were kind of talking about where to locate your vegetable garden and what kind of garden you wanted, either a raised bed or more of a flat one. So if you want to kind of watch that video, that's earlier on. The last one was on crop rotation and why that's important. And so today is deciding what to plant, so which is lots and lots of fun. So I think the most important thing is to try and plant what you eat. A lot of people will plant a whole bunch of something and then they discover that their family just doesn't want it. So think about what it is you eat on a regular basis, what kind of vegetables, and then think about trying to grow those. The other thing I would say is think about what will grow well in your area. For example, we do really well here with beans. Beans and our root crops seem to do really, really well. But I had a really hard time trying to get cucumber to grow. Whereas when I was living in another part of southern Ontario, we had so many cucumbers. And they were just really, really easy. So if you have people around you that you know do vegetable gardening or if there's gardening forums that you're on that are local, ask them what grows well, because we moved two areas in the same city and it made a big difference about what we were able to grow versus what we were not able to grow. So think about that. So first of all, what is it you eat? How much of it do you eat every week? And then what do you think is likely to grow well in your area? And another thing that will help you know what is more likely to grow well in your area is what gardening zone that you're in. I'm going to post a link in the description about a website that I use to determine what gardening zone we're in. We're in zone, don't mind, we have farmers that are kind of tracking back and forth with their tractors and making hay and things like that, so there might be a bit of noise here and there. So we are in either zone 5B or 6A, depending on kind of which website or which thing I'm referring to. So, and what a gardening zone means is it tells you kind of when your first and last frost dates are likely to be. So by using that, I know that in this area, our last frost is somewhere around the 1st of May to the 7th of May, something like that. And then, so that's our last frost. And then our first frost in the fall is likely to be mid-October. Mid-November, I wish. So anyway, it's likely to be around mid-October. And so that can kind of help me know how many growing days we have, and so that'll help me pick which plants are likely to do well here. So those are the first things to kind of think about. You know what your family likes to eat, you know what people have had luck growing, and then you also know what your gardening zone is, so that's good. The next thing to think about is trying to make the most of your space. So, and what I like to do is kind of what I call layering of plants, where I'll think about things that will start early in the spring and then maybe finish early, and then I'll plan to put things in there for later on, like a fall planting. The other thing that I think about is, so some things will take up more space, but they may be small to begin with, and so you may want to plant something kind of beside them that you're going to then pull out later. An example of that is, so we normally grow parsnips. Parsnips take a long time to get started. The seeds take a long time to germinate. So what I'll often do, because it's a root crop, so I'll often plant garlic beside it, because garlic is also a root crop, but you pull that out kind of mid-season in middle of July. So parsnips will get really, really big, but what I can do is grow the garlic beside them. I pull the garlic out, then there's a space that opens up, and that allows the parsnips to expand. So that's a way of kind of layering of one thing over another. The other thing I'll think about is, as I said, some of those things that get started early in the spring, and then they'll finish, and then I'll put something else in there. So a good example is in our legume or peas and beans segment of the garden. I will often plant spring peas, so snow peas, sugar snap peas, or just like the regular green peas. pardon me, the mosquito. And then those will finish up probably by June. I'll pull them out, and then I plant just some regular bush beans in there, because that'll give us an extra crop of beans by the time the frost hits, and it just means we get more out of the space that we have. And it's better to kind of have something in the soil than to leave the soil just kind of open, because then you're more likely to get weeds cropping up, and that's kind of ends up causing you more trouble down the road. So think about as you're kind of thinking about your garden, and I recommend that you draw out a plan so that way you can kind of mark up what you want to plant where. So if you take a look at our garden plans, you can kind of see an early one that we started with, and we kind of think about at the beginning, so I'm going to have this here, and then I'm going to put something else afterwards. You can kind of see that I have a line where it's going to be peas, and then I've got /beans afterwards. And then we started with a very small garden, and then you can see kind of later on where we expanded, and we've got a much larger garden, a vegetable garden now. So again, that's another thing that I have suggested before, is that you gradually expand the size of your garden as you move along. Another thing that you need to think about is kind of when in the year you're going to plant things. I know that a lot of people will kind of take here in southern Ontario, we'll take the May long weekend as kind of the time to plant everything, but it's not necessarily the case. There are three kind of general classifications for vegetables. You have ones that are kind of more frost tolerant, then you have more kind of neutral ones, and then you have really kind of delicate vegetables. So the ones that are more frost tolerant are things like spinach, the brassicas, which is like kale, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, those kind of things, and peas also. So you can look it up. There's lots of different resources that'll tell you things that are more frost tolerant. So those you can actually sow in the ground, the seeds, not the plants, because the plants will still kind of, if you put plants in there, they'll get nipped by frost. But you can plant them 1 or 2 weeks before your last frost. So as I said, since ours is kind of the beginning of May, I'll plant my spinach, my peas, my kale, my Brussels sprouts. I'll plant the seeds in the ground 1 or 2 weeks before that, so somewhere in the neighborhood of mid-April. And then the other things that are kind of more neutral, like the rest of the root crops, like the beets, the carrots, other things like that, I'll plant kind of right around the first week of May, which is when in our zone is kind of considered that most likely average last frost date. And then the ones that are more delicate, I'm going to plant 2 weeks after. And so that's kind of where you get into more of that May long weekend. And the ones that I would tend to hold off on would be the squashes, probably then also tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, basil. If you're thinking about herbs, that's also very delicate. So those ones you do want to wait until that May long weekend, but the other ones you can get them in before that. So think about kind of that when you're planting your garden. It also kind of breaks up the planting a little bit. If you have a big garden like we do, you don't have to do it all at once. Oh, the other one that needs to wait a little bit is beans. Beans need the soil to be pretty warm before you sow bean seeds. So think about that, and then that'll kind of help you kind of plot out, for lack of a better word, how you're going to do it. All right, so think about these things when you're starting to dream about your vegetable garden, and then when you have an idea what you want to plant, you can order your seeds in advance. We'll talk another time, probably in the spring, about how if you want to start growing your plants indoors starting from seed, that can be a great option, because then you're not really at the mercy of what your local garden center is providing. You can kind of pick varieties of tomatoes or peppers or whatever that are interesting and not something that you would find everywhere. But we'll talk more about that kind of as the season progresses. And I hope that you are dreaming of your new vegetable garden as much as I am excited for mine next year, and that you have a great day. If you have any questions at all about this video, please put them in the comments section. I love to answer questions. That would be just wonderful. And then if you are interested in more of our videos, please press the subscribe button or the little bell if you want to get notifications when I post a new video. All right, Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.